The Deputy Martin referred to the deeply corrosive effect of no action being taken in relation to the suspension of Parliament in Hungary. And I have the same concerns about the suspension of that Parliament, but I want to use his language. Deeply corrosive. What I think is deeply corrosive is the gap between the language used by our leaders, the government here and the leaders in Europe, and the actual reality on the ground. That is what's deeply corrosive to the democratic process, and which I'm very concerned about. And lovely words were used today by the Taoiseach and the incoming Taoiseach, not sure which Taoiseach, in relation to Europe. Solidarity, equality, the freedoms, the four freedoms in particular. And the actual reality on the ground is so removed from that, it beggars belief that one would use that language without looking at what is actually happening on the ground in our name in Europe. And so when this broke, the EU, in my opinion, and I welcome the belated effort, it failed to mount a collective humanitarian response, and indeed has struggled for months to put a package together. They've blatantly ignored the relevant article in the Lisbon Treaty that talked about if a country was under threat from a natural disaster or other type of problem, that we would act collectively. So, founded on the free movement and the freedoms and particularly cross borders of mutual solidarity, several countries, including Austria and Germany, moved to close their borders unilaterally. Of course, we didn't. Italy, which has suffered tremendously, invoked the disaster fund, meant to facilitate the sharing of vital medicine supplies between members. Not a single European country responded. Not a single European country responded to Italy's call to activate the disaster fund. It wasn't until weeks later that the EU approved a 50 million package to Italy to help produce ventilators and personal protective equipment, which, if I have a chance, I might come back to. Most EU nations, in fact, imposed export restrictions on medical supplies. That was some solidarity. Germany blocked shipments of 240,000 of masks to Austria. French authorities commandeered the distribution of 6 million masks, which were heading for Sweden, or from a Swedish company that were already contracted to other countries, and so on and so on. Instead, the people who were most down didn't rely on the ever-increasing closer union. We had a team of Chinese health experts arrive on March the 13th to help Italy. Russia sent help. Cuba sent a team of doctors. Cuba, that's been subjected to more and more restrictions that Europe are saying nothing about in relation to the American embargo on it. Indeed, criticism of the treatment of Italy came from the European Commission President herself, and she said that we owe a heartfelt apology to Europe. So the question has to be asked, did Europe finally mobilise because of shame in relation to action taken by China, Russia and Cuba? The Greek islands. There are 42,000 asylum seekers trapped in 5 hotspots. Nobody has mentioned it today. Not a single one of our esteemed leaders of the bigger parties have mentioned the situation. Along with the people who live there, and only a capacity for 6,000. In Lesbos, we have 20,000 people living in a camp. These figures, Minister, come from this, the fundamental European Agency for Fundamental Rights, and how our fundamental rights are absolutely being affected by the measures taken. So in Lesbos, we have 20,000 people in a camp built for 2,840. And on Samos, there are 6,000 people living in a centre for 6,550 people, and so on. We have Palestine, and we have no action by Europe in relation to it, and the serious situation for those who have been placed under a blockade by the Israelis. And there are many, many other examples. But in my last minute, I want to go back again to language. And we have used the language of war to deal with this virus. And indeed, Minister Harris repeatedly has used the language of war, and he has used personal words in relation to the virus. It's vicious, it's nasty, it's not nice, it's horrible. What is not nice is our reaction to deal with it in a prepared way. What is nasty is our failure to have our health service in a position to deal with that virus. And Europe is behind that, because following Europe's directions, we ran down our health service for a very long time, and we built up our military capacity. So if we're serious about a new world, about learning something and not going back to the type of unsustainable development that we had in every sense of the word, then the first thing to do, Minister, is to make a statement here today on our military budget to Europe. Make a statement on stopping our payments under PESCO, and indeed that we will withdraw from PESCO. If we're seriously interested in humanitarian help, then let's look at what's gone into a military budget in the guise of pretending that we're defending each other. And when the test came and we had to defend our countries against the so-called nasty, vicious virus, we utterly failed to do so as Europeans.
Thank you.
Thank you.